Well, this final movie is maybe one of the more interesting movies of the night. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, from 1985, the year right after the first movie came out. In which a teenage kid named Jesse moves into the house that Nancy used to live in, and throughout the film he sort of becomes, in a way, possessed by Freddy, and he tries to, I guess, control his urges while Freddy is attempting to get out and continue his murderous rampage in the real world. And I first want to say, before anything else, that poster is so cool. I love the poster. It's like an A+ poster. The rest of the movie isn't that great though. It's so decent. It's just very different from the first movie. They go a very different direction with this one. And this is really like the black sheep of the Nightmare on Elm Street series of it all. And it can't go without mentioning this potentially gay undertones to this movie, and by undertones I might mean overtones. That makes it somewhat amusing and somewhat awkward at times. And I mean, you can't watch the movie nowadays without seeing it. But I have a little bit to say about this movie. But what do you think about this one?
It's decent in the grand scheme of things, mainly because it's got Freddy Krueger in it. I mean, like a lot of the other horror movies where you've got these really popular characters, as long as that character is in the movie, it's watchable. Which is, despite some of the later sequels like Part 5 and Part 6, which I think are, to my memory, I think are the weakest ones in the series, but it's been a while since I've seen them. The fact that Freddy's in it still makes them somewhat watchable. And even though I think Part 2 it's nowhere near the best in the series, it's at least better than those other movies that I mentioned. So this one's decent, just for that main reason. It does have, like I said, some odd homoerotic type scenes in the movie. If it had one more, I might have orgasmed. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I didn't really think much of it back when I used to watch it as a kid, but yeah, it's just a little strange. I guess to counteract the homoerotic stuff, I thought Lisa was a fairly attractive girl in the movie. I don't know, maybe it was that scene where he was getting up near around those titties. So that's probably what did it for me.
Yeah, one thing I think might have helped a little is if, in the first movie, if we had ever once seen Nancy keeping a diary, that would have been nice. Because there's a whole thing in this where the kids find, her diary, and then they learn about Freddy, and of course they try to learn more about him. I mean, we didn't see anything in the first movie that showed that she didn't keep one, but it's just things like that might have made this a bit easier to swallow.
Did you just say swallow because of the whole homoerotic thing?
It's actually not quite what I was going for, but I'm happy that you pointed that out.
Okay.
Actually, on a side note, the guy who plays the coach, I can't remember the guy's name, but that guy, every time I see him in this movie, it just cracks me up because he's just such an aggressive guy.
Is he the guy in Total Recall with the baby thing on his chest? I can't remember what it's called.
I've not seen Total Recall.
Well, we're gonna have to change that.
But I do enjoy his scenes, especially so. There's a sequence in this movie when Jesse is, I guess, sleepwalking, and he winds up in a gay bar downtown, and he happens to run into the coach. And I have no idea if the coach has the authority to do this, but he brings the kid back to the school gym and has him run laps. Which that scene also cracked me up because I don't think that's what would happen. I might be wrong, but if you happen to run into one of those students at the gay bar, you're not going to take him back to the school and have him run laps. Well, and he's so dressed up in this like complete leather clothes. That scene I always thought so strange to me. But then again, I did go to high school back in the 80s, so maybe it's a different time.
Yeah, that is pretty funny. Like, some of the things that they used to do back in the day, yeah, it's just kind of funny to see, or to imagine them doing that now. Just imagine a teacher, like, out and about in the town somewhere, and they're like, that's it, detention right now. I can't remember if we discussed Carrie in the first or second episode, but it was a long time ago, but we had this thing where I know we had a small discussion about something like this, where there's like a scene in that movie where a teacher slaps a student, and I guess definitely, if they did that now, there'd be huge repercussions for that, but back then it seemed almost normal for if someone gets out of line, they get whacked.
I guess one other thing I want to point out about this movie, it does have, despite the scene being, in my opinion, somewhat nonsensical, the poolside massacre with Friday, going after the kids. I always did like that line, "You are all my children now." Like I said, I don't think it makes much sense. I'm not sure if any of those kids' parents had anything to do with his death, but it was interesting, and I did like seeing him go after a bunch of kids too. So that's good stuff.
Yeah, I like. I can't remember the exact line that he said, but the guy is trying to kind of play the peacekeeper type role. I can't remember the line, but at least it was good to see him, dispose of that guy.
I felt bad for the guy, to be honest. He was just trying to be a nice guy, and I like how he thought Friday was somehow, capable of being, sedated. Like, hey, calm down, buddy. And you can just tell he just wants to kill that guy, and it's some good stuff. Also, I have to point out, I really like Jesse's father in this movie. Like, that guy and his aggressive nature. Just, the house is overheated, that board blows up and he blames the kid. That's another one of those scenes that consistently cracks me up.
Maybe he's got something pent up from the fact that his son's doing a bit of homoerotic type stuff.
Well, I mean, you can't forget Jesse's dance.
Yeah.
It's
not quite as memorable as, say, like Crispin Glover from Friday the 13th Part 4, but yeah, it's
he does have some pretty dope sunglasses though. I mean, that's like a scene I would see in a teen comedy. Just a kid dancing and then his parents and their love interest walk in.
Yeah.
Although I will say this movie has really nice partial effects. Especially the scene that always stands out to me is when Friday sort of coming through Jesse's body, and I think it's Grady's room. I thought that scene looked really cool, and again, that whole scene itself is a bit strange, but I think this partial effects are at least decent, even if the story is not the most sensible. The way this movie ends is somehow even worse than the first movie's ending, so that's impressive. Honestly, they don't know how to end these movies. I guess the best ending's probably the fourth movie. I mean, the third movie is a decent ending, I guess, but they just have the problem with knowing where they're going with this. But it's probably one of the most interesting movies of the original six. As much as, I mean, I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's probably more average than anything. But it's, in my opinion, it's definitely better than number 5. So if you can at least get through 5, you'll probably enjoy this one.
Yeah, there's a lot of the Freddy movies that I've only seen a few times, and then there's a few that I've seen many times. It's certain this one, part 2, it's certainly not, a standout in the series, at least for me.
It is in some ways.
Well, it's got like a 5.5 out of 10 on IMDb, so that's one of the worst ratings from the movies in the series, I believe.
Yeah, honestly, the fourth movie has a 5.7. The fourth movie is probably better than this one, but I think it's a bit of a close call, but that's just my controversial opinions. This movie's not great. It's very much a different movie than the first one. It's not nearly as classic, but there are some scenes in this movie that I think are quite memorable. It's interesting. It's just a lot different. So I'm giving this one a 7.5 7.5, and I'm going to lower that down to a 7, which is my average rating. You know, like Chucky said, it has Freddy in it, and you can only screw up Freddy so much. And I think it's actually pretty menacing in this movie. It's just the rest of the movie I could do without. But it's very interesting watching it from a modern day perspective. So a 7 out of 10 seems pretty fair.
Yeah, I'm going with a 7 out of 10. Like I said, it's got Freddy in it, so how bad can it really be?
We'll watch 5 and find out.
Well, that's where it gets to its lower points, yes. But technically, if you're a fan of Freddy in any kind of way, you'll find anything he's in to be at least watchable. And, you know, this one's a little bit better than some of the other worst movies in the series. It's still far from the best, but I enjoy it enough